couple of days ago, I made a video, and some people in the comment section disagreed with my take. So I want to address the issue again because I don't think I made myself clearly enough. Now, the video was about the Facebook censors. I really hate the word moderators. Censor seems to be a lot more appropriate for the job they do. And the video was trying to milk a tear from my cock about how difficult their job is. And I genuinely do not agree. I do not agree that their job is difficult. First of all, because I don't think their job is important. I am an old person that has lived in the internet during the Wild West period, and I had seen very disturbing stuff on the internet, and yet I am still here. But back in the day, if someone would post disturbing things, you would mute or block them yourself, and thus you would get away from that person. And if someone was actually posting criminal things on the internet, then people would just call the cops on that person and the police would handle it. If someone posts vile stuff on the internet, I just don't want it censored. I want the person behind bars. As for the reason I don't find the people at Facebook's job to be that difficult is because I can think of plenty other jobs that are more difficult, and yet the people at those jobs are complaining less. Take being a soldier, for example, where you actually have to go and shoot people for a living and get shot at. Or being a police officer that also has to see disturbing stuff just like the people from Facebook do. Or even being a doctor on an ambulance where you go on the highway and you see some of the most disturbing stuff that human mind can imagine. Think about picking up after a body and trying to find the eye socket from the missing part of the cranium because you can't just leave it there and you have to search it underneath the cars and to see where it could have flown off. So all in all, I do understand that being a Facebook censor is having some level of difficulty to the point where my grandmother with a weak heart wouldn't be able to watch grotesque imagery after grotesque imagery. But I do believe there are people who can do the job, and watching disturbing stuff is part of the job's difficulty level, just like going into a raging inferno is part of being a firefighter. Or tackling criminals is part of being a police officer. I mean, you should know the job you do. And because of the nature of the job, you get paid money in exchange. So you do have the ability to at least sit at a computer in a room with air conditioning rather than go out and carry bricks for a living. Which is also a noble job, but again, not everyone can do it. I, for example, would not have the body strength required to be a construction worker. So again, if you do manage to have a job at an air conditioning level, you should still be happy about that. However, I want to point out that there are difficulty levels involving in being a Facebook censor that have nothing to do with the job itself and more with the Facebook corporation abusing its workers. And while there is no way for the Facebook censor to avoid seeing disturbing stuff because that is the very nature of the job he signed on for, there are ways in order to limit the stress and the abuse that the Facebook corporation brings upon its employee. And the reason I chose this particular topic for today is because I am fed up with communists. And I mean actual communists, like people on the Twitter that have the hammer and sickles and their pronouns in their bio, calling themselves communists and lecturing other people about the factories. So if you're one of the people that your wife's boyfriend calls you an anarchist and you're proudly a supporter of the Marxist ideology, then can you please, for the love of Jesus Christ, come into the current year, Trudeau +4, I believe, and start realizing that the proverbial factory that Marx was talking about back then are now the current IT companies. Because you see, it's a lot better to work in a factory that's almost entirely fully automatized and you get a really big wage for doing that, for working in a car company, than it is to work at a place like Facebook or to be sat in a cubicle. And there's a lot of human rights abuses that seem to go at all of these IT companies, most of them being also sponsored by the government through various tax cuts or even handouts and goodies and gibs that come from my taxpayer money. And yet there's very little criticism from the left regarding these corporations. Because all these corporations have to do is to virtue signal about how progressive they are, and then you have the masked anarchist goons just looking the other way. I mean, they would rather go and protest Tucker Carlson's house rather than protest one of these corporations that do the human rights abuses. And by the way, it's systemic from what I can tell. And from what I can tell, almost every single IT company does these things that I am talking about. So at least in my country, and I don't know if this is the United States, but I did hear other people in the comment section saying that it's similar in their countries. This is one of the things that corporations do. So you have various laws which are trying to protect people from abuses. And if you're an employer, you do have to give people a minimum wage. You do have to pay people extra if they work above 8 hours. You can't force them to work 16 hours a day. And yet, IT companies are doing this, and it's legal. How? Well, they won't just hire you as an employee. What they say is you need to go and you need to be a self-employer. Just start your own company, do your own taxes in Europe, which is what the employer should do. We do not care about your maternal leave. We do not care about any of the things that leftist governments have set in stone. Not for the multi-billion-dollar corporation, but for the little upstarting businessman who needs to follow all these regulations, because big corporations seem to be able to get away with it. And how they get away with it? Well, again, you're not an employee, you're a contractor now. So they got like these rooms filled with cubicles with thousands of people that aren't their employees, they're their contractors. And they still have to go to work on time. They have deadlines that are very difficult to complete within 8 hours. So they work overtime. They're always afraid of getting fired because they can't meet those particular deadlines. And it's horrible. And yet you don't see people talking about this on television. You don't see people from Antifa talking about this. And I doubt that they aren't aware of the reality, because most of the people that seem to be woke also seem to be part of the corporate mindset. They also seem to be part of the people that are working within these companies. And do you not see that this might be a problem? I mean, imagine if in Marx's time, all the factory boss had to do was to say that he supports communism. And then everyone would just leave him alone. It's just mind-boggling to see these human rights abuses just going under their nose, and no one even wants to talk about the problem. And by the way, I don't have a solution. Like, I don't know what the solution should be, because I'm not a law expert in the matter. But at least the problem should be discussed so that other people that are smarter than me can offer a solution. And apparently this is so bad that when someone had a heart attack at Facebook, people were still watching their screens rather than turning their heads in order to look at the guy who had a heart attack and trying to help him, because they were so afraid of not meeting that particular deadline. This is so bad that people at Amazon are pissing in bottles rather than going to a bathroom. And the punchline is that people from the far left, who are the ones that are supposed to tackle these abuses and at least talk about them and protest against them, they would rather talk about companies not having transgender bathrooms. And like, who cares? Who cares if you can't even use it? You idiots. I mean, it's so mind-boggling that all a company has to do is to claim it's woke, hire a commissar, a diversity officer, and it gets left alone by the far left. And the far left would rather protest against Tucker Carlson because, yes, he's clearly the issue. And by the way, right, this is just like scratching the surface. Apparently, Facebook employees have to sign non-disclosure agreements regarding their work conditions. It's just like, you can't make this up. Like, I get it, signing a non-disclosure agreement about how the algorithm works or, company secrets. But apparently, the way they oppress their workers is a company secret, and people from Facebook have to break that NDA in order to talk to publications from The Verge, which I'm really surprised they even gave one article for this issue. And here is where we reach peak leftist ideology, by the way. A woman wanting to become a traditional wife and cooking for her husband and children, that is dangerous. That is the supremacy of white people over everyone, according to the press. But a woman sucking the corporate cock and being a wage slave in one of these cubicles, this is uplifting somehow. This is for the greater good. This is what freedom looks like. Like immigrants wanting to go into the United States and being prevented from the border, from, I guess, working at these corporations in these absolutely miserable conditions, that is the oppression. That they're not allowed to work under this filthy environmental conditions. And again, it's not just about the fact that the work that they're doing is soul crushing. But you also have to go through the constant pressure that your boss gives you so that you meet that 98% accuracy quota set by Facebook. So not only do you have to review thousands of disturbing images, but you also need to make sure that at the end of the day, 98% of those that you reviewed are accurate. Can you just even like imagine? So like 97% is not enough. Like these people go to bed at night afraid that they have a 96% accuracy ratio rather than 98 and they can get fired. And if you get fired, all right, there is no benefits usually at these IT companies. Like you don't get unemployment pay or anything like that because you're self-employed. You're a contractor. Wake up. You're not an employee. It's your own business now. You go do your taxes. You go solve your shit. It's like they can just cut you off and you can't sue them. You can't do anything. And if you talk about it, you can get sued because you signed a non-disclosure agreement. So here is the thing. Maybe people just don't believe me or you haven't been really impressed yet about the problems that I have talked. And I only scratched the surface. But I want people in the comment section, give me your story if you have worked at one of these IT companies and talk to me about the work conditions there. You know, like tell me the harrowing story that you have experienced. And then maybe I'll read them on a live stream. How about that? Because I think that would actually make it really interesting. So you can just scroll down in the comment section and see people just posting their stories. Because that's going to be a little bit more enlightening. Again, like to me, it's really upsetting that you have people who are supposed to defend the worker and just talk about the overreach of multinational corporations who only care about profits. And it's fine, like it's completely normal that they do, but there should also be someone representing the little guy. The left isn't doing it, the right isn't doing it, so the little guy, which is often the younger guy who graduated the university or something and learned to code, and it can be your son, by the way, it can be, you know, a family member, or it can be you, is being so oppressed and so abused to the point where people are killing themselves. So it's no wonder that so many people from the corporate environment are supporting Marxism. But I'm telling you what, Marxism in the United States and in most of the Western countries is just controlled opposition at this point. Because you know what the punchline is? All these corporations also support Marxism, and they're perfectly fine with donating to leftist NGOs that support the ideology as well. Because they know that there's not going to be any, you know, protests or uprisings or things like that if they're the ones that are pushing the cash. I hope you liked the video, and again, let me know what you think in the comment section. Have the conversation there. And don't forget, I have another channel where I talk about more funny stuff, more entertaining stuff. And I'm doing it because the algorithm is suppressing me here. So if you'd like to check out that channel and see the videos that I put out, trust me, you'll love it. Planning to do a review of the new Picard TV show as well. And I'll see you guys there.